I used to think betrayal would come with fireworks, some big explosive moment where everything cracked at once. But mine came in the form of a half-empty closet and a voicemail that started with, "Hey Nora, I'm sorry," and ended with silence. No fight? No warning, just gone. I'm Nora Evans. I'm 41. I've lived in the same town in Vermont my whole life. I'm a nurse at the regional clinic, I wear my hair in a ponytail most days, and I know the name of every kid in my daughter's second-grade class. I married Aaron when I was 27. He taught music at the local high school, the kind of guy who wore corduroy and quoted Sufjan Stevens like scripture. For 13 years, we were solid. Not perfect, but solid. We had June 7 years in, after 3 rounds of IVF and 1 miscarriage. She was our miracle. Or so I thought. It started with Aaron saying he got accepted into a week-long conductor's workshop in New York. It wasn't unusual. He'd gone to summer clinics before, and we both agreed that he needed creative space. 1 week, he said, packing his suitcase while June drew butterflies on his travel pillow. I'll call every night. He kissed me goodbye with coffee on his breath and that same half-smile I fell for in the first place. The first night, he texted, "Made it. In love with this brownstone Airbnb. Miss you too." I sent back a picture of June eating cereal out of a measuring cup because all the bowls were in the dishwasher. He heart-reacted. Then nothing. I mean it. Nothing. Day 2. No call. Day 3, I left a voicemail. Day 4, I messaged his coworker just to check if he'd heard anything. The answer came from a blocked number on day 5. It was a voicemail. He sounded like he was rehearsing the words. "Hey Nora, I'm sorry. I thought I could do this, but I can't. I'm staying in New York. I've started something new and it's better for everyone if I don't come back. I've transferred you $8,000. That should help for a while. I hope you and June will be okay." That was it. I was standing in the break room at work, holding a microwave burrito and listening to my marriage end between beeps. I remember my knees going soft. I sat on the floor, burrito in hand, and just kept pressing rewind like it would change. I didn't cry that day. I went home, made grilled cheese for June, told her Daddy had to stay a little longer, and curled up next to her until she fell asleep. Then I sat in the laundry room until 3 a.m., staring at the basket of his socks he didn't take with him. I wanted to throw them. I wanted to scream. But mostly I just sat there trying to figure out how I'd been so stupid. Over the next week, I kept thinking there'd be a second voicemail, an explanation, a crack in his voice. But none came. The only other thing he sent was a formal divorce filing through email with a no-fault clause and a line about maintaining stability for the child. The child. Not her name. Not our daughter. Just the child. I went to work. I picked June up from school. I answered questions like, "Has your husband made it back yet?" with a smile that felt like biting tinfoil. I told my parents and they offered to drive up, but I said no. I couldn't handle pity on top of everything else. What broke me wasn't the voicemail. It wasn't even the silence. It was walking into the grocery store 2 weeks later and seeing Ms. Hadley, the school librarian, patting June on the head and saying, "I hope your daddy's enjoying his new life in New York." New life. That's when I knew. It wasn't just me he left. It wasn't confusion. He'd moved on. I cornered Hadley in the paper towel aisle. She turned white. "Oh, God," she whispered. "I thought you knew." Knew what? That Aaron and that woman, Olivia, I think. She plays violin at the symphony. Everyone kind of knew. Everyone kind of knew. Apparently, Aaron had been talking about reconnecting with someone from Juilliard for months. Apparently, he'd taken a long weekend to New York in February, while I was home with a flu-ridden June, under the guise of a school field trip. He hadn't just left me. He'd been preparing for it. He'd taken his time. And everyone else had quietly stepped aside to let him go. I drove home with paper towels and half a rotisserie chicken and the kind of rage that doesn't make you cry. It makes you cold. June was painting rocks on the back porch when I pulled up. She asked if I could help her write her name in glitter glue. And I did, because I was going to keep everything steady for her. Even if the man who helped make her had thrown us away like leftovers. I sat down that night with a glass of wine and every login Aaron ever used. Some still worked. His Spotify, his Amazon, his shared calendar. And that's when I saw it. An event marked for the following week. June's birthday dinner, home. Home. He was planning to come back. Just like that. After 6 months. After silence. After tearing our world apart. He was coming back. Like nothing had happened. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was sad. God knows I'd cried enough by then. But because I couldn't stop thinking about that damn calendar notification. June's birthday dinner, home. That one word. Home. Like it was some hotel room he'd booked for the weekend. Like he could just drop back into our lives with a store-bought cake and pretend the last 6 months didn't happen. By sunrise, I was sitting at the kitchen table with 3 Post-it notes in front of me. One said lawyer, one said therapist. The third said, why does he think this is okay? That one stayed blank for a long time. I went to work that morning in a fog. I took vitals, changed IVs, smiled at patients. All muscle memory. Inside, I was running on fire. I couldn't stop replaying conversations from months ago. Times I asked Aaron if he was okay, if something felt off. He always said he was just tired. Teaching drains me, babe. Don't overthink. I blamed myself for being too emotional, too clingy. Turns out I was just right. That afternoon, I picked June up from school and asked her if she wanted to help me bake cupcakes for her birthday. She nodded like I'd offered her a pony. Can Daddy come to my party? She asked, out of nowhere, still fiddling with her glittered lunchbox. I froze. Why do you ask that? Because he called me. Her voice was casual, like she was telling me what she ate for lunch. Yesterday, he said he has a surprise. I felt something twist behind my ribs. When did he call? After dinner. He said not to tell you because it's a secret. I smiled, or I tried to. I told her secrets weren't safe if they made you feel weird. She shrugged and went back to coloring in the back seat. That night, I went through our phone bill. Aaron hadn't called her directly. He used FaceTime from a new email, a burner account. My 7-year-old didn't know better. He was weaving his way back in without facing me first. I called him. Straight to voicemail. So I texted him. You do not get to sneak back into her life like this. I don't care what kind of birthday fantasy you've cooked up. We are not your stage. He responded 10 minutes later. I'm her dad, Nora. I have every right to see her. I'm coming next Friday. Don't make this ugly. Make this ugly? This man abandoned his wife and daughter with a voicemail and a Venmo transfer? And now I'm the one threatening peace because I don't want him showing up like the goddamn birthday clown? I didn't reply, but something clicked in my brain that night. Something cold. I was done waiting to be considered. If he wanted to pretend like nothing happened, I was going to make sure the rest of the world remembered everything. 2 days later, I met with a family lawyer named Maggie Brandt. She was a short woman in her 60s with thick glasses and a voice like gravel. I told her everything. She listened. She didn't flinch. Technically, she said, he's still June's legal parent. But he's also walked away from financial and emotional responsibility. If he tries to petition for custody later, these 6 months are going to matter, especially if we have documentation. So I showed her the calendar screenshot, the burner email, the texts. She nodded, scribbled notes, then asked me a question that made my throat go dry. Has anyone else known he was with someone else during this time? I hesitated. Then I remembered Hadley and the conversation at the grocery store. Actually, yeah, a few people. Write down their names, she said. We might need them. I left her office with a plan. For the first time since Aaron left, I felt like I was doing something that mattered. Not just reacting. Not just surviving. That weekend, June had her birthday party. Just 5 kids, some streamers, a unicorn cake she picked out herself. She wore a purple tutu over her jeans and made everyone call her Queen June. I watched her laugh, covered in frosting, and thought, how dare he think he can just walk back into this? That night, after the last kid left and the balloons sagged on the porch, I sat on the floor with a glass of wine and stared at the front door. He didn't show up. No call, no knock, no message. I waited until midnight, not because I wanted to see him, but because I knew he'd said he was coming. I wanted to see what his excuse would be. The next morning, I got a text. Sorry I couldn't make it. Things got complicated. I'll come next weekend instead. Let me know what time works for you. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I laughed, out loud, in my kitchen, because I finally understood. He wasn't trying to come back to us. He was trying to rewrite the ending. Make it look like he never really left. Like he was just busy. If he could slide back in without disruption, he could dodge responsibility, dodge guilt, maybe even dodge the court. But here's the twist. The night of the party, while I was cleaning up juice boxes and stray balloons, Hadley texted me. Just one line. You might want to check the city council's minutes from February. He was there, with her. I didn't get it at first. But then I looked. The town's public records. And there he was, Aaron, at a council meeting 2 months before he left. Not just attending, but petitioning for a teaching job in the city. With Olivia listed as his emergency contact. 2 months before he left me. Before he decided. He had already changed his emergency contact. Already built a new life. While I was sitting at home with a sick kid and a mortgage. And suddenly, this wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about intent. He didn't leave because he was lost. He left because he had it all planned. And now, I had proof. I always thought if Aaron ever came back, I'd slam the door in his face. Maybe even throw something. But the day he actually showed up, it wasn't anger that hit me first. It was something colder. Like I was watching a stranger walk through a movie set that used to be my life. He pulled up in a rental, some shiny black thing he probably thought made him look important. June was at school. I was home early, folding laundry with the back door open when I heard the tires crunch on the gravel. I walked out to the porch still holding a towel. Aaron got out like nothing had happened. He smiled. Smiled. Hey, he said, like it had only been a weekend. You look good. I didn't respond. Just stood there, arms crossed, towel balled in my hand. My heart wasn't racing like I expected. It was slow, steady, locked in. He looked around like he was checking if anything had changed. Is June home? No, I said. Why are you here? I told you. I wanted to see her. I figured I'd surprise her. For her birthday. You missed her birthday, I said flatly. By 5 days. He shrugged, like that didn't matter. Things came up. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because if I didn't, I might have screamed. I've been thinking a lot, he said, stepping closer. About everything. About you and me. I know I handled things badly, but maybe we can start over. The audacity nearly knocked the wind out of me. Start over? After 6 months of silence? After replacing me like I was a couch you got tired of? I'm not sure what fantasy you're living in, Aaron, I said. But this isn't a movie. You don't get to disappear and then come back for the big reconciliation scene. He looked surprised, like he truly thought he'd walk in and I'd just melt. Like I should have been grateful. I'm still her father, Nora. You're a stranger who FaceTimed her from a fake email and ghosted for half a year. Do you even know her favorite color anymore? He didn't answer. I was shaking now, but not from fear. From holding back everything I wanted to say. Every night June asked if Daddy forgot her. Every time I lied and said he was just busy. Every doctor's visit, every nightmare, every math worksheet. We did it alone. You don't just get to show up and act like this is your life again, I said, voice low. You gave that up when you chose her. I didn't have to say her name. We both knew who I meant. And just like that, his expression shifted. He stopped pretending. The charm dropped, and what replaced it was something sharper. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," he said. "June deserves both parents. I could file for shared custody. A judge might think you're being unreasonable." I stared at him, stunned. He really believed that. "I have records," I said, "of you abandoning us. Messages, emails, calendar events, witnesses. And your little visit to the city council? Public record. You made Olivia your emergency contact 2 months before you left." That landed. His mouth tightened. "You did this, Aaron. You planned it. You weren't confused or lost. You made choices." He didn't speak. He just stared at me like I'd betrayed him. Then, without another word, he turned and got in the car. No apology. No goodbye. Just peeled out of the driveway like a teenager. I stood there for a long time, my fingers numb from how hard I'd clenched them. Then I went inside, called Maggie, and told her everything. She filed for sole custody that week. I thought that would be the end of it. I really did. But 3 days later, I got a call from June's school. "Hi, Mrs. Evans," the secretary said gently. "This is probably a misunderstanding, but Mr. Evans came by this morning. He said he had permission to take June out for lunch." I dropped my coffee. "He what?" "We didn't let her leave, of course, but he seemed pretty sure. Said you two had worked things out." I couldn't breathe. That night, I sat June down and told her, gently, that sometimes grown-ups make bad choices. Even people we love. I told her she was safe, that I wouldn't let anyone take her without my knowing. She nodded, quiet, then said, "Daddy told me not to tell. He said you'd be mad." I held it together until she went to bed. Then I locked every door in the house and sat on the kitchen floor, shaking. The next morning, I called Maggie again. We filed for a restraining order. But it still wasn't enough. I could feel it in my gut. Aaron wasn't done. He wasn't coming back because he missed us. He was coming back because he realized he couldn't control the narrative from New York. That he couldn't play the good guy if I kept telling the truth. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I reached out to Olivia. Her Instagram was private, but her art website wasn't. She had an email for commissions and press inquiries. I didn't overthink it. I just typed. Subject: you deserve to know. Body: I'm not writing to fight. I just think you should know what Aaron's trying to do. He came back. Not because of love, but because it didn't work out with you. And now he's trying to erase the last 6 months like they never happened. I attached the screenshots, the court filing, the school's call log. Then I hit send. And then, 2 hours later, I got a reply. From her. It was one sentence. "He told me you cheated and tried to take his daughter away." I stared at the screen, not because it shocked me, but because it confirmed everything. He hadn't just lied to me. He'd lied to everyone. Built a new story where I was the villain. He wasn't just coming back to see June. He was coming back to take her. By the time I got Olivia's reply, something in me had shifted. I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I wasn't confused. I was done surviving. I was done playing fair. Aaron had been painting me as the villain for months, probably from the moment he set foot in New York. And now he was crawling back. Not out of guilt, not out of love, but because Olivia left him and he wanted control of the one thing that still gave him leverage. June. I sat at my kitchen table that night, laptop open, Olivia's email glowing like a tiny truth bomb. "He told me you cheated and tried to take his daughter away." It wasn't surprising, but it was the last nail. I stared at those words, heart pounding, and realized he'd played us both. And maybe that was his biggest mistake, assuming 2 women who'd been lied to would stay silent, ashamed, isolated. I wrote back, short and cold. "I can prove everything he said was a lie. If you want the truth, I'll send it. but only if you're done covering for him. She replied within the hour. Send it. So I did. Everything. The custody filing, the school report, the text messages. A voice memo of June asking, "Why does Daddy say I'm not allowed to tell you he called?" Every piece of the story he'd twisted to suit himself. The next morning, Olivia sent me a Dropbox folder. It was titled, "In Case I Ever Needed It." Inside were screenshots of their texts going back a year. Messages where Aaron bragged about how easy it was to keep me emotionally pliable by drip-feeding guilt. He talked about moving June to New York as soon as Nora burns out. There was even a draft email to a child psychologist where he claimed I had been emotionally abusive, months before he left. But the worst was a single video. I didn't even want to open it at first. It was him, Aaron, sitting in their old apartment in Queens, talking to the camera like it was a job interview. "If I get primary custody," he said, sipping wine, "she'll break. She's weak. Always been. I give it 2 months before she lets me have full rights. And with her schedule, courts will eat it up." I couldn't feel my hands. This wasn't a man who just made a mistake. This was someone who'd mapped out my destruction, my exhaustion, my kindness, my history. He'd turned it all into weapons. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. He planned this. I sent the video straight to Maggie. She didn't even respond with words. Just an emoji with steam coming out of its nose and then, "Emergency motion. Filing today." While the legal process kicked in, I started preparing my own moves. I contacted June's school, gave them copies of the restraining order, updated emergency contacts, installed a Ring camera. I didn't sleep much, but I started drinking water again. I went back to yoga. I even made a playlist called Songs to Ruin Aaron by, which was mostly Alanis Morissette and angry Taylor Swift. But the real moment, the moment I knew I was no longer afraid of him, came that Friday. June was at my parents' house for the weekend. I was home, folding laundry in the living room, when I saw a figure on the porch through the front window. Aaron, standing there in a gray coat like he was starring in some indie movie about regret. He knocked once. I didn't move. He knocked again. Then I heard his voice. Quiet, almost rehearsed. "Nora, please, I just want to talk. I'm trying to fix this." Fix this. He said it like he was patching drywall, like June and I were some minor leak in his life plan. I hit record on my phone and opened the door, just a crack. "You don't get to rewrite history," I said calmly. "You left. You lied. You built an entire campaign against me." His eyes shifted. "What are you talking about?" "Don't insult me. Olivia sent me everything." His face paled. "You need to leave," I said. "And if you ever show up here again, the next knock you hear will be from the sheriff." He didn't argue, just stood there a moment, frozen, as if this wasn't the ending he imagined. Then he walked down the steps and got into his car, the engine coughing like even it didn't want to help him. I went back inside, hands shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from clarity. That night, Olivia texted me again. "He's staying with his mom now. I told her everything." She didn't even look surprised. Of course she didn't. Margaret had always been cold, but I never realized how deep her denial ran. She'd enabled him for years, told him he was brilliant when he was cruel, excused his choices by calling them misunderstood. I was just about to respond when a new email pinged on my phone. It was from a lawyer, one I didn't recognize. Subject: Preliminary Custody Inquiry, Margaret Evans. I opened it, read it once, then twice. It was a formal notice. Margaret was petitioning for grandparent visitation rights and stated she was deeply concerned about her granddaughter's emotional well-being due to the instability in the mother's household. I laughed. Not a full laugh. A broken one. The kind that starts in your stomach but never quite makes it to your chest. This woman, who ignored June's birthday, who never once called after Aaron left, who let him lie and cheat and abandon, was now claiming I was the unstable one. It wasn't over. I thought I was fighting Aaron, but I was wrong. I was fighting them both. I didn't cry when I read Margaret's petition. I wish I could say I was shocked, but after everything Aaron pulled, this felt like the natural next betrayal. Still, seeing my name in a legal document accusing me of being emotionally volatile and possessive of my own child, that hit different. Not because it was true, but because it was so rehearsed, so calculated. She even referenced witnesses, people from Aaron's past who'd supposedly seen me lash out. I knew exactly who they were. Old family friends who hadn't spoken to me in years but still got Christmas cards from Margaret, the kind with June's face on them, like she'd been part of our lives all along. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I just stood at the sink with the faucet running and whispered out loud, "She really thinks I'll fold." That was the moment I stopped trying to protect the little pieces of Aaron's image for June's sake. If Margaret wanted a legal war, I was done fighting with rubber gloves. Maggie, my attorney, went full steam ahead. We filed a motion not just to contest the petition, but to introduce the video evidence, the emails, the burner accounts, everything Olivia had shared. Maggie even subpoenaed school records and security logs from the day Aaron tried to pick June up without permission. The court date came faster than I expected. It was a rainy Tuesday. I wore a navy dress I hadn't touched since my sister's wedding. June stayed with my parents. I needed her nowhere near that room. Aaron showed up alone. No lawyer, no tie. Just a man who looked like he'd slept in his car and was still too proud to admit it. Margaret walked in behind him like she was entering a boardroom, chin high, scarf looped perfectly. She didn't look at me once. But when the judge called my name, I stood up and looked her dead in the eyes. I wanted her to know I wasn't scared of her anymore. The hearing was brutal. Margaret's lawyer tried painting me as unstable, overworked, and dependent on community support to meet the child's needs. I could feel my blood rising, but I kept still. Maggie didn't blink. She waited, silent, then stood up and walked the judge through every piece of our evidence. She played the video. The one where Aaron said I'd break in 2 months. The courtroom was silent. I didn't watch the screen. I watched Margaret. She didn't flinch, but Aaron did. He sank lower in his seat like a kid caught cheating on a test. Then came the kicker. Maggie introduced a recorded call, one I'd made with June's school administrator, who confirmed that Margaret had once called the office pretending to be me, asking about June's schedule. I remember the judge raising her eyebrows. "Did you say impersonated?" "Yes, Your Honor," Maggie replied calmly. "We have the phone records to match the voice recording." At that moment, the tone of the room shifted. Margaret's lawyer tried pivoting, saying it was all miscommunication, that she was just worried. But it was too late. The judge ordered a recess. When we returned, she looked at Aaron and Margaret with a tired kind of disgust. "I see no reason to grant this petition," she said. "In fact, I'm issuing a protective order. Ms. Evans, you'll maintain full legal and physical custody. Mr. Evans is restricted to supervised visitation at a county-approved facility, and Ms. Margaret Evans is to have no contact, direct or indirect, with the child until further notice." I didn't exhale until I was in the parking lot. The rain was coming down hard, soaking my coat, but I didn't care. I stood there and let it hit me, right in the face, just breathing. Aaron walked past me. For a second, I thought he might say something, but he didn't. He just stared at the pavement like he didn't recognize any of it anymore. Like he'd finally realized the version of the story he'd been telling himself didn't exist. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a short note written in jagged cursive. I didn't know he was capable of all that. I believed him. I was wrong. I hope you and June are okay. Oh. I stared at that letter for a long time. Not because I forgave her, but because it confirmed something I needed to hear. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I had been gaslit for so long that I'd started questioning my own memory. But the truth? It stood up in court. June doesn't ask about her dad much anymore. Sometimes she'll mention a song he used to sing or a joke he told. I answer her questions gently. I tell her the truth, in pieces she can hold. I won't let bitterness shape her, but I won't hand her fairy tales either. These days, our home feels lighter. We bake a lot. We make art. We dance like idiots in the kitchen. I picked up an extra shift at the clinic, not because I have to, but because I can now, with no one draining me dry behind the scenes. And Margaret? Turns out the country club didn't take too kindly to a member being hit with a protective order involving a child. Rumor is she resigned for personal reasons. Whatever the case, she's quiet now. So is Aaron. Closure didn't come in one moment. It came in a dozen tiny ones. A text not sent. A panic that didn't rise. A laugh that came easy again. If there's anything I've learned, it's this. Sometimes the strongest revenge is simply not breaking. It's standing tall while they unravel. And if you're still reading this, if this hit something tender in you, feel free to share your story in the comments. You don't have to carry it alone. And if you want to stick around for more, you know where to find me. Thanks for walking with me through this. It means more than you know.